PPEs, and ventilators. And of those three, the greatest critical need are ventilators. Now, ventilators, you say ventilators, nobody really knows what you're talking about. The people who are going to come in, the people who will have acute needs, these are people who are under respiratory distress. They need a ventilator. The ventilator will make the difference between life and death, literally, for these people. This is a piece of equipment that in the normal course of business, you don't have a need for high levels of ventilators. And our hospital system has about 3,000 or 4,000 that has always met the need. This is a dramatic increase in the number of ventilators that you need. We have been working around the clock, scouring the globe. We've procured about 7,000 ventilators. We need, at a minimum, an additional 30,000 ventilators. You cannot buy them, you cannot find them. Every state is trying to get them, other countries are trying to get them. The capacity is limited. They're technical pieces of equipment. They're not manufactured in 2 days or 4 days or 7 days or 10 days. So this is a critical and desperate need for ventilators. We're going so far as to trying an experimental procedure where we split the ventilator. We use one ventilator for 2 patients. It's difficult to perform, it's experimental, but at this point we have no alternative, so we're working on this experimental application. Picture 2 hospital beds, 2 people in beds, 1 ventilator between the 2 of them, but with 2 sets of tubes, 2 sets of pipes going to the 2 patients. Again, it's experimental, but necessity is the mother of invention, and we are working on this as we speak, because life is options, and we don't have any other options. There is no other way for us to get these ventilators. We've tried everything else. The only way we can obtain these ventilators is from the federal government, period. And there's 2 ways the federal government can do it. One is to use the Federal Defense Production Act. There's a federal law where the federal government can say to manufacturers, you must produce this product. I understand the federal government's point that many companies have come forward and said we want to help, and General Motors and Ford and people are willing to get into the ventilator business. It does us no good if they start to create a ventilator in 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks. We're looking at an apex of 14 days. If we don't have the ventilators in 14 days, it does us no good. The Federal Defense Procurement Act can actually help companies, because the federal government can say, look, I need you to go into this business. I will contract with you today for X number of ventilators. Here is the startup capital you need. Here's the startup capital you need to hire workers who do it around the clock. But I need the ventilators in 14 days. Only the federal government has that power. And not to exercise that power is inexplicable to me. Voluntarism is nice, and it is a beautiful thing. And it's nice that these companies are coming forward and saying they want to help. That is not going to get us there. And I do not, for the life of me, understand the reluctance to use the Federal Defense Production Act. Also, the federal government has 20,000 ventilators or thereabouts in the federal stockpile. Secretary Azar runs an agency called HHS Health and Human Services. I asked the secretary, look at the first word in the title of the agency you run. It is health. Your first priority is health. You have 20,000 ventilators in the stockpile. Release the ventilators to New York. How can we be in a situation where you can have New Yorkers possibly dying because they can't get a ventilator, but a federal agency saying, I'm going to leave the ventilators in the stockpile? I mean, have we really come to that point? Also, we have to be smarter about the way this is being done. The federal government has to prioritize the resources. Look at where the problems are across this nation. California has 2,800 cases. Washington State, 2,200 cases. Florida, 1,200 cases. Massachusetts, about 800 cases. New York has 25,000 cases. New York has 25,000 cases. It has 10 times the problem that California has. 10 times the problem that Washington State has. You prioritize resources and your activity and your actions to where they are needed.
And on the topic of splitting ventilators, I saw him speak about that last night in more detail, and that's not going to work most likely, because if somebody has a strong lung capacity, stronger than the other person they're splitting it with, it's just not going to work, because the pressure of the ventilator has to be different levels for different people, basically. So it's insane that he's in this position, and he's been talking about this for a week, pretty much at this level, and nothing has been done to help him.